Long after the sauropods had all dropped dead, terrestrial mammals spent quite a while enjoying the new average size of everything. But after a while, they too dreamed bigger, and a lot bigger. The even-toed ungulates put forth their largest entries with the mega camels and giraffes. The proboscideans invented monster mammoths, but the odd-toed ungulates went one better. Half rhino, half horse, half giraffe. This was Paraceratherium. This was possibly the largest land mammal to have ever existed. Paraceratherium was bigger than a T-Rex, and even comparable in size to some of the smaller sauropods. In this video, we're going to look at Paraceratherium's rise to the top, its mysterious facial appendages and eventual decline, and we'll end with a mammal that may or may not have been even bigger. From China to Eastern Europe, Paraceratherium fossils have been dug up in Oligocene sediments since the mid-1800s, though nobody knew what they were back then. The first documented discovery was unearthed by an English paleontologist called Guy Alcock Pilgrim in a province of Pakistan in 1907. It was a few fragmented pieces of jaw, and this would become a very common limitation in the following decades too. Pilgrim described his find as a new species of already known rhinoceros called Paraceratherium, and this would be the first of many genera Paraceratherium would migrate through before landing in its own. In 1910, a discovery by another Brit in Pakistan, Clive Foster Cooper, added a pair of downward-turned tusks to the collection, and the Paraceratherium genus was devised from those, and Cooper moved Pilgrim's fossils over into it. He also named the genus Thaumastotherium, which he populated with larger fossils from the same site, but these too would ultimately end up being redefined as Paraceratherium. Both Baluchitherium and Indricotherium have also been used to describe fossils that emerged as Paraceratherium since. But to cut a long story short, in 1985 these were all consolidated as the single Paraceratherium genus, and by 2021 the fossil evidence, while still fragmentary, had added up enough to be relatively certain about this, as well as confirming that this monster represented a fourth family of rhino-like animals, Paraceratheridae. So what was it? From the early days, it was clear that Paraceratherium was an odd-toed ungulate. Today, this is a small clade of ungulates that includes rhinos, tapirs, and horses in total. But from the Eocene to the Oligocene, when Paraceratherium was stomping around, these were the dominant group of mammals. Around 50 million years ago, in the early Eocene, the superfamily Rhinoceratoidea appears in the fossil record, and this is where rhinos still sit today, and where Paraceratherium would have been. Traditionally, this contained three families: a semi-aquatic hippo-like rhino called Amynodontidae, a North American hornless group called Hyracoodontidae, and the true rhinos, Rhinocerotidae. Paraceratheriadae therefore represents the fourth, and its early members show up in the early Eocene too, with Juxia and Ertinotherium appearing as early or basal members, and Paraceratherium showing up in the last quarter of the Eocene. This family contained animals the size of modern rhinos at one end of the spectrum, but as it happens, this was the low end of the size range, and at the other sat Paraceratherium. Paraceratherium was one of the largest land animals to have ever existed, and there's very little in terrestrial mammalian history that would have ever come close. Frustratingly, its true size is still shrouded by a murky and fragmented fossil record, but there's no question that this had a tremendous mass and a huge size. It's estimated to have stood between 4.8 and 5.3 meters at the shoulder. But this doesn't tell the full story. Unlike modern rhinos, this one had a neck like a giraffe, adding another 2.5 meters in potential reach to its final form. This puts it taller than any known proboscidean, such as the steppe mammoth, and weight estimates have it in close competition with the largest of the elephants too. Originally guessed to be around 30 tons, this has been significantly reduced since, and weight estimates now sit frustratingly vague at between 7 and 20 tons. And this all comes down to the lack of clear evidence. The full picture of Paraceratherium's skeleton is still a matter of guesswork, based on the combination of fragments from individuals of all different sizes. But the largest skulls are well over a meter long. It had a long forehead, but none of the rough connective surfaces that we find on rhinos with horns. What's interesting though is that the nasal bones are split well up into the face, giving it a look of an animal that had a very flexible upper lip, perhaps even a trunk. At the front of the jaw are two pairs of incisors, one on the top and one on the bottom, forming short, thick, stubby tusks. It doesn't seem to be built for pushing like modern rhinos are, but the long neck may have been used in competition on its own. We see this in giraffes. Its limbs were thick and dense to support its huge weight, which is something we also see in mammoths and sauropod dinosaurs, and its pillar-like femurs were over 1.5 meters long, larger than almost any other animal, and really only outshone by mammoths and the larger of the dinosaurs. From the fist-sized teeth in its jaw, this was clearly a browser of soft material, which might go some way to explaining the long neck too. The proboscis or prehensile upper lip would also aid this, as might the tusks. As usual, the soft tissue is even more of a mystery. This animal is usually depicted as a rhino-coloured creature with skin folds and no fur, just like a modern rhino, but there have been some suggestions that Paraceratherium could have had elephantine ears for thermoregulation. Another strategy to keep cool might have been to stay in and around water, but of all the places, this was the most likely to bring Paraceratherium into contact with something that could kill it. Most of the Eocene and Oligocene predators of Paraceratherium's time were wolf-sized at best, but there are some marks on fossil bones that suggest the monster crocodile Astorgosuchus could have taken a bite from a Paracerium now and then. This true crocodile lived in Pakistan at the time and may have reached 8 to 10 meters in length. A full-grown Paraceratherium likely had no enemies, but its young still would have been vulnerable, especially in the water. Back on land, some of the largest threats may have come from the likes of Hyaenodon gigas, the 400-kilogram robust carnivore from Mongolia. So, despite being the largest mammal ever on land, Paraceratherium was not invincible among the Oligocene killers of Eurasia. In the end, the entire line of rhino-like animals would go extinct, and nobody's quite sure why yet. Perhaps they reproduced slowly and couldn't compete with the influx of African proboscideans in the late Oligocene. But while this hypothesis has been proposed, there doesn't seem to be any sign that the two lineages shared the same space at the same time. Proboscideans would indeed take over, as would artiodactyls in general, as the Oligocene gave way to the Miocene and eventually the Pleistocene, in which there were plenty of other giants around. And even the status of Paraceratherium as the largest mammal ever is questionable. We're about to go into why, but first here's a reminder that every time you enjoy one of our videos, clicking the like button helps to train the algorithm to send it to more potential fans, and that helps us a lot, so please do. And if you're feeling generous, leave a comment beneath, and as always, subscribe for the next ones. Now, as promised, we want to talk about size, specifically how Paraceratherium may not have been the largest land mammal ever. It's likely to have been taller than all of the non-sauropod dinosaurs, and it was certainly one of the heaviest mammals to ever walk the land. But more recently, Paleoxodon namadicus has thrown its hat into the ring. This colossal Pleistocene elephant is the largest in its genus, but it too suffers from a very fragmented fossil record, so it's impossible to find a consensus as yet. But this elephant reportedly had a femur of almost 2 meters long, perhaps more, giving it a speculated height of up to 5.2 meters at the shoulder, and a long trunk to top that off with. But the specific femur that this estimate was based on appears to be nowhere to be found, so extrapolations from it can't be relied upon. Instead, from fossils that are better recorded, a 2024 paper set an estimate of around 4.5 meters tall and a weight of up to 18 tons. Both of these fall within the range estimates of Paraceratherium, meaning that either one could hold the title of the largest ever mammal. And of course, there may always be new discoveries just under the surface to kick the whole debate off again. Mammals got big, and while on land they never really could compete with the sauropods in size, in the water they've remained the largest animals to have ever lived. The blue whale holds that title, being as it is bigger than any dinosaur or marine reptile so far known. But before mammals ruled the oceans, there were multiple different lineages having a go at aquatic dominance, and we have some videos about those too, so feel free to check them out after this one. As for this one, that's all for today. Thanks again for watching, and see you next time.